Let's talk psychometric charts. This is a representation of a psychometric chart, and it has 7 or 8 different measurements on it. First, you need to see the x-axis, the horizontal axis, that is representing the dry bulb temperature. You can see that it can go from 20 degrees Fahrenheit to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on the chart that you're using. And then you can see that the y-axis, which is the horizontal axis here, is the grains of water in that air. So we also call it specific humidity. And if you have 2 points on this chart, 2 measurements on this chart, you can create a what we call a state point. A state point is explaining what the condition of 1 pound of air is there. And for example, we can take 1 pound of air that is 75 degrees Fahrenheit, like so, and it also includes 60 grains of water. So this is what we call here. This point is what we call a state point, because we have identified a specific condition of 1 pound of air, because the chart represents 1 pound of air, and it is 75 degrees Fahrenheit and has 60 grains of water. But what is that good for? Well, as I said, there are other measurements that you can derive once you have identified that state point. For example, in this case, if we look at the point itself, we can see that it is at or between 50% relative humidity and 40% relative humidity. It's a little bit closer to 50%. So if you wish, you can say this point has a relative humidity of 46%. All right. And the other thing you can notice is the wet bulb temperature. Wet bulb temperature are the diagonal lines that are drawn like this. And in this case, this diagonal line is 60, this is 65, so this is 61, this is 62, meaning the point is between 61 and 62 in terms of wet bulb temperature. This is an example of how we use one diagram, one chart, to deduct different measurements from only 2 measurements that we can do. For example, it is very common in the field that we measure the dry bulb temperature and the wet bulb temperature with a psychrometer, or we can have a dry bulb temperature and relative humidity that is also going to give us a state point, and so forth and so on. This is how you're going to use the psychometric chart, and I'm going to go further and explain how it is built.